You guys remember Garfield the cat? I remember one of the cartoons where he said, you know, it's hard to be humble when you're as great as I am. I always thought that was kind of funny. So talking today about pride and going through the 7 deadly sins one at a time and pairing them up with a modern platform of social media, some more directly than others. You know, you got to keep the theme, so some of them are going to fit a lot better. And what I found in doing research for this series is that many of these social media platforms can actually apply to all of the 7 deadly sins if you do it just right. So I know that some of them will fit more neatly than others. So today we're looking at the platform Instagram. Instagram was started in 2010, and it was launched so that people could share pictures, because it seemed like things on Facebook, and even before that, how many remember MySpace? I think I've still got a MySpace page somewhere floating around in cyberspace. Because the idea was it was just to share images. Well, of course, now Instagram shares videos and all kinds of the other things that the other platforms share as well. There's just not as much of it to weed through as on the other platforms. So Instagram's pretty cool stuff. But as we talk about pride, I'm a little confused, because I thought pride was a good thing. Take pride in a job well done. Take pride in your nation. Take pride in your family. I always thought that was good. I thought those were good things to be connected with and to share. So I thought, well, if I'm going to link Instagram, maybe I should look at other Instagram pages. So just as a heads up, when I do social media, especially Facebook, because there's all kinds of things that fly around on Facebook, I use an app called Hootsuite that I can send a video, a picture, or just a message out, and it'll post on those things, and I don't read them. Like, I don't go out there and read everyone else's posts. I can just schedule mine to go out there because there's something I want to share. A lot of times then I'll go and read, and then if someone comments on mine, then I can go back and see it. But a lot of times if I'm on Facebook, it's just real quick to see what cute pictures of my kids came up from 7 years ago or whatever, right? Those are kind of fun. So anyway, so Instagram. So I went on Instagram, and I looked on some pretty interesting things to see what would come up. So Instagram is what we're going to look at today and see if it can teach us anything about the deeper meaning of what pride really is in a modern world. You know, the 7 deadly sins, as we talked about earlier in one of the kind of the introduction pieces, is that the Protestants didn't think it was good because it was really not biblical. But what I read you in the Gospel of Mark is Jesus' list, and it's basically the same list. And Jesus had this tendency to take things that were really long and cumbersome and shorten them down. So the early church fathers thought that was a good idea. Middle Ages, 7, perfect number, easier for people to remember. So let's see what's on Instagram. Hey, there we go. There's somebody on the left there that has got, hundreds and hundreds of dollars of champagne on ice going, hey, taking it easy. Okay, that's interesting. Somebody else that's talking about how hard it is to stay comfortable on a private jet. Wow. Life's pretty rough, huh? Okay, so I found that on Instagram. I found a couple more. I found this person who says, which one needs your help? Snap. So they're trying to decide, do they want to drive the Bentley, the Ferrari, the other Ferrari, and I'm so middle class I don't know what the rest of them are. So honestly, I'm sorry I don't. I know Ferrari because the red and the yellow, that's easy. So that's interesting. Well, which one? Golly, that poor person. Don't you feel sorry for them with all those choices they have to make, those hard decisions of which car they're going to drive? Oh. And then here's LeBron James. Right before he had a milestone in his scoring, becoming, I think, one of the youngest to reach so many points or something like that. So he created this post of him as his younger self congratulating his older self before the game even took place. That's cute. So there's some things that are on Instagram. Well, that's good. People have the right to to be proud of their accomplishments, right? That's not sinful. That's all right. That's okay. But here's what we run into with this is actually a model for any communication, but we're going to use it for Instagram. So Instagram, somebody over somewhere else is saying, I want to post on Instagram. I've got something going on. Picture and send. And it goes out to anyone following them and anyone who follows their followers and followers of the followers. You don't need to remember that, but it gets complicated. So people can see it, basically. Anything you put online, anything you post, becomes public domain, whether you like it or not. And on Facebook, I love seeing those, I am hereby posting that my images are my own property, and la 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 la. If you post it, you don't own it. I don't care what someone says. I don't care what you subscribe to. Any image, any likeness that you put out there, you no longer own. So if you don't want someone else to have it, don't share it. If it's no big deal, then that's it. So your message is going out, your image, your fun trip to the beach, your food. I post food a lot. Those of you who follow me on social media, I post pictures of food a lot. Because I very rarely have someone really angry at me for posting food. Usually, you're making me hungry. Rather than, you crazy conservative or you wacko liberal, you don't get that when you post food. So, and I'm a centrist, so I get it from both sides a lot. So, message goes through, and then someone sees your post, and they're going, what a jerk. That person is so sinful, posting all those champagne things, whether they're being wasteful, whether they're just, it's a shame. Because they've interpreted it one way. So the message goes, and you think your intent goes, but your intent will never go all the way. Why? Because unless they're there and talking to you about it and why you posted it, or you put a long list of why you posted it, they'll never know. They just see a picture with a little caption, and then they make up what? Their own mind. So just remember that when you post something, or even more importantly, when you read something or you see something, don't just assume that you understand what they meant. If you don't like it, don't look at it. Move on. But it's always important when we communicate with one another to understand, even directly using words, that our intent is not always easy to convey. That the message also has to have a back and forth to be able to become more clear. So, that's something that's always good to keep in mind. So, but really, we're looking at some people with nice cars and nice planes and very rich basketball players. So they're annoying, right? They're annoying. And pride is a really annoying thing when you see it in other people, isn't it? You're just like, oh, get over yourself. Or how can you be so closed off? Or, oh, yeah, whatever. But is it really a sin? Yeah, because Jesus says it is. And that's what it comes down to. Because we could all sit in a group and convince each other that pride and all the great ways that pride is there. But the reason why it is the first of the 7 deadly sins is because it is the most subtle. Because pride comes in and it sneaks in and it makes us feel good about ourselves. And all of our pop psychology, self-taught, Dr. Phil, whatever TV shows tell us we have to have what? Self-confidence. You have to what? Believe in yourselves. No, you don't have to believe in yourself. You need to believe in Jesus. And He'll teach you who you are to believe in. Jesus says that pride is a sin because in pride, well, we'll find out a little more as we journey together this morning. Will Willimon says in Sinning Like a Christian, he says, for those of us who are trying to take Jesus seriously, sin is not a foible, it is not a slip-up, it is offense and a rebellion against our Creator. See, we say that a lot, don't we? Oh, I sinned. Oopsie, right? I just kind of stepped in it, didn't I? No, that's not what sin is. Sin is an offense and rebellion against our Creator. Sin is that which separates us from a holy and righteous God. Jesus makes the rather astounding claim that when it comes to sin, it's the thought that counts. Sin not only hurts the neighbor who is sinned against, but also reflexively bites the sinner too. Sin carries within itself its own punishment. It erodes the soul. It severs the intended relationship between creator and creature. And these sins are called sins because of the nature of God in Jesus Christ, not from some view of human nature. See, when we view the human nature first, we can justify anything. But if we start with God and what Jesus teaches us about God, there's no escaping it. We're kind of stuck about what all it really says. The way to understand pride, I think, is that it's, and really all of these, but specifically pride, because all the other 6 very easily come out of pride. I mean, can you think of a sin that doesn't at some point start with pride? I mean, it was pride that got Adam and Eve to eat the apple, pride that got the serpent to tempt them. I mean, it's there. It's there. But pride is really, and I want you to hear this, pride is misdirected love. Pride is misdirected love. Oh, Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God. So what's the first thing? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. In loving God, you'll be taught about who you are. You'll be taught about how to love your neighbor. And in so doing, then you will know how to love yourself. You will not be set up in competition against your neighbor. You will love your neighbor because of how God has revealed God's self in Christ, and you will be made whole. Or at least more than you were yesterday and beyond that journey. So misdirected love. Pride is like behaving in a way that we are responsible for all of our own success. If you experience enough things that make you feel good about yourself, and that's as deep as it goes, it'll start spreading to the point where eventually God will disappear. Because there's no reason for God, because you just did it all yourself, didn't you? Well done, attaboy, right? Once we set ourselves up against someone else, and oftentimes God, who's trying very desperately to get our attention to say, this is not healthy. This is not the way I want you to be loving. So pride is misdirected love. When we're full of pride, can we listen to anyone else? Nope. When we are so sure that our perspective is the right way to look at things, the right way to look at the world, the right way to live, when we are so sure, we are so self-confident, we won't ever listen to anyone else. And if we hear ahead of time what their perspective is, what their affiliation is, what their philosophy is, what their lifestyle is, we've already shut out the fact that we're better than they are because we're right, they're wrong, and we won't listen. You know what? You might be right, but you just sinned because you just let all that pride into your life. You let self-righteousness in, not the righteousness of Christ. That is the slipperiest slope that we exist in today's modern world. Is because we get so sure about how right we are that love sneaks out of the room and we don't even know it's gone. Love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how am I supposed to love myself? I just kicked my neighbor out. And God says, hey, that's a problem. That's not the way we're trying to do things. C.S. Lewis, I think, really explains it well in his book, Mere Christianity. C.S. Lewis explains pride's problem of being competitive in nature. That you really are not prideful about having $100 until you speak with your neighbor and find out that he's got 200. And then you need to have 300. So on and so forth. You know, and that's like keeping up with the Joneses. And that's easy for us to go like, oh yeah, that's sinful. That's not a good idea. But where are the more subtle aspects in your life where that same attitude can creep in and you don't even have a clue that that's what's motivating you and that's what's in your operating system spiritually? How are you sure that you just haven't gently taken the controls over on your life from God and are just so happy about the way your life is going right now because you're in control? It's your decisions, it's your choices that have made your life better. But then what happens when everything falls off the rails? God's fault, isn't it? Oh, God must be testing me. Oh, God's done this to me. Pride is dangerous because it makes us the center of our own universe. And nobody else gets to be in. So Voltaire put it this way. He said, we are rarely proud when we're alone because there's no one to compete with. That's why so many people, when they do a spiritual retreat, go off by themselves, because it's a way to reboot from pride. Get all the pride out. Just kind of be humble. Be in God's presence. Go to the mountains. Go to the ocean. Just take in a deep breath. Just be between you and God. If you're not spending that kind of time together with God, you need to start. Because if it's not just you and God, how are you ever going to get back on track if you're indeed off? Galatians 6 says, each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. So, to answer the question at the beginning of the message, yes, you can be proud of some things. But the minute, the nanosecond, that it becomes a competition, or that you know better, or that you are better, you've sinned. So it's dangerous. So you need to test your own actions. You need to go back through and rethink your own motivations. And in doing so, then, it's okay. As long as you're not comparing yourselves to someone else, it's all right. The Latin of pride is superbia. Superb, I'm better than. See, I think if we don't ever go back to some of these ancient languages to understand the root of what was going on, because in the Middle Ages, when the 7 deadly sins kind of really came out, Thomas Aquinas, kind of all that stuff, it was Latin. The church's language was Latin. The Mass, everything was in Latin. So superbia, pride. So I want you to remember that the Latin for pride is superbia, superb. I'm superb. I'm super better than you. And that personification that I just did is the thing that we all think of with pride as sin. But that's not the one that's going to get us. It's the one where we're just so sure we're right. And like I said in the children's moment, you may be right. You may be. But what's it worth? Because the minute that you've stopped being loving, you've stopped following Christ. You've stepped off the path. So was it worth it? Because the minute you can't hear someone else's perspective or opinion, and I know, as long as that other person is being respectful to you too, I get that. But we won't even get that far half the time. And that's why we've got so many problems in our country today. No one listens to each other. They just try to figure out how they can make their argument sound great. So everybody goes to their own news sources, everybody uses their own weapons, everybody gets their own ammunition, they get everything locked and loaded, and then they're ready to go. Nobody listens to each other. There's a lot of pride. So, what's the response then? If we lose love in pride, then let's go back to the one chapter we know is all about love, right? Now granted, we usually hear it where? At a wedding. This is Paul's letter to a church where factions are filled with pride and not listening to each other. Now, granted, in a marriage, sometimes I guess, you need that kind of instruction too. I mean, it is important. It does apply. But Paul's intended purpose. Let's go through this. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love believes the best. How many burdens would you let go if you just gave yourself permission to believe the best in others and move on? If someone's post on Instagram, if someone's overheard conversation in a shopping mall or restaurant, and you just thought you just understood them because of one or two comments you heard them say, what if you just believed the best about that person and moved on? How would your life be different? When we believe the best about others, we free ourselves from the obligation of being prideful in ourselves. Because it's competitive. When I hear someone say something and I might disagree with it, I just think about that person's character. If I know them, I think about all the great things that they do, and about the thing that their perspective is different than mine, and maybe they know something I don't. So maybe I talk to them about it. Or maybe I just don't want the conflict, so what do? I believe the best in who they are, and I love them, and I move on. It is very freeing, let me tell you. It is a lot easier than having to try and police the opinions of other people, because you will never have enough time in the day to do that. And you'll lose a lot of friends and relationships in the process. Because love believes the best. And in that gracious, loving attitude that you treat people, what kind of effect do you think that might have on them in their lives? Might be pretty transformative. So pride is a sin because of competition, setting ourselves as better, more human, more Christian, more whatever than somebody else. And Paul reminds us that love's not proud. It believes the best. It doesn't try to hurt people. It doesn't try to win. Love doesn't even really try to be right. And that's tough for us to wrap our minds around. So, Instagram, pride, they're connected. They're connected because human beings are using them. Where it's a problem and where pride is generally an issue for us is, why am I sharing this? Am I sharing this plate of keys to let you know that I'm richer than you and I'm better than you? Then that's way, oh yes, that's pride. That's pride. Is it pride if I'm a NBA superstar and I put out this congratulatory thing to myself? Well, am I doing it because I'm better than you? Or am I doing it because I remember what it was like to be that kid and be terrified of all this pressure that was placed on my shoulders? What if I'm posting that because I remember when the only person that believed in me was me, and everybody else just wanted something from me when I was a high school basketball kid in Akron, Ohio? And now that I've made it, I want to go back to how I felt as that little kid, and I want to say, you did it. You did it. Congratulations. You see, intent is everything about it, isn't it? So if I believe the best about LeBron James and about how many millions of dollars that he spends every year helping kids get college educations and helping kids who can't afford bicycles to just wake up on Christmas morning and bicycles are magically in their apartment complex. And just an aside about LeBron James, I had a friend in my doctoral studies that was from Cleveland, and he actually helped organize one of those bike drop-offs. And the one condition was that LeBron James said, no one will know it's me. Does that sound like someone that's like real prideful? And the deal was that they had to get him delivered, and so he bought all of these Chevy vans, cargo vans, and then the vans, after they delivered the bicycles, were donated to food pantries and homeless shelters. So because I remembered that story, when I saw the post of the young LeBron James, I believed the best. And even if he was filled with pride and conceit, I was free of the burden of thinking bad of him. And I just didn't even think about it. I'm like, oh, good for him. Love believes the best. So we have a responsibility about how we receive messages. We have a responsibility in how we share messages. But in the end, the only thing we're really accountable for is love. When you stand before God, He's not going to care if you're a Democrat or Republican. When you stand before God, God's not going to care about any of your affiliations or your perspectives. Did you love? Did you take a step back so others could see me in your life? Well done, good and faithful servant. So in the end, the remedy to pride is in fact love. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit.